for retirement is supposed to be simple. Save a little, invest wisely, and watch your nest egg grow. But as the 2013 Frontline documentary, The Retirement Gamble, reveals, the system isn't always stacked in your favor. Between high fees, confusing plans, and a maze of financial jargon, even the most diligent savers can find themselves coming up short. In this episode, we break down how the retirement industry really works, why so many Americans struggle to secure their financial futures, and just how much things have changed, or haven't, since the documentary was made. You're listening to Real Stories, Real Problems with Rachael and Roxanne.
Hi, Rachel. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Roxanne. How are you?
Oh, this was a bummer of an episode. I totally deserve it after getting such thrills recording our Halloween episodes. This one was like back to reality, back to the grim, depressing existence that is multinational corporation capitalism. And yeah.
Yeah, I will say the Halloween episodes were so fun. I love doing every one of them. But, the financial side of it was a little bit like, the value of public libraries or how to afford mental health care so your child doesn't stab somebody. Like,
yeah.
very kind of adjacent to what we normally do. So
Right.
This week we're right back in it with, back into the financial grind of things with the retirement gamble.
Yeah.
And you're right. This was kind of a depressing watch. And I think in large part because nothing has really changed for the better since then.
Right.
This documentary is more than a decade old. At this point, it's 12 years old.
Right.
And in 2013, that was the Boston Marathon bombing that, 3 people were killed and 281 people were injured. Pope Francis got elected. And a meteor exploded over the Russian city of Chelyabinsk.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah, I apologize
to the listeners in Russia.
Yeah, I cannot pronounce it, but there was a meteor that exploded over the Russian city, injuring like almost 1,500 people and damaging more than 4,000 buildings. It was the most powerful meteor to strike the Earth's atmosphere in over a century.
Wow, and I didn't even know that was happening.
Yeah, so that was like big stuff going on. And this documentary essentially was about America's retirement crisis.
Right.
And I have a history minor, and part of that was focused on economic history of the Americas, both North and South America. I touched on a lot of that. And I gotta tell you, this was bringing back a lot of moments from the history classes I was taking.
Flashbacks?
Yeah, where I was just like, oh my God, we talked about that in my history class and why that was really horrible and what's happened to the nations that have done these. So, this was a lot of being washed over by, oh, the horror. But yeah, so this was all about like essentially how Americans no longer have the security of a retirement that they were essentially guaranteed for. There was a solid 30 or 40 year period where Americans, like, your job was going to have pension, you were going to have Social Security, there was going to be a combination of things that kept you alive and afloat and took care of you in your old age.
Right.
And then the 1980s came along and they were like,
maybe not.
And there were a lot of people who were talking about investing in 401ks in this documentary, and one of them, the quote was, if you want to gamble with your retirement money, be my guest.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's exactly what you're doing.
You're investing in something that you don't know is even going to be a thing in 20 years or 30 years. You don't know what's going to happen to the value of the dollar.
Yeah, you don't know if what's going on with this company, like if it's going to be an Enron situation and they're going to go under,
right?
Or they're going to get bought out by venture capitalists and all that money is going to disappear. Like you have no idea. And this is what they've set up for Americans to be able to retire. And right now they're fighting tooth and nail to take away Social Security because all that money is sitting there and they really want to access it to, bomb brown people in other places and
have the brown people taken away.
yeah.
Yes.
And so, they would rather do that with our retirement funds that we've all been paying into than, pay for people to retire in comfort.
Right.
And realistically, like they said, half of Americans say they can't afford to save for retirement, and a third of Americans have basically no retirement savings at all.
And I have my hand up here because that's my situation. Due to a series of bad choices and being blatantly lied to many times, I'm living day to day. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I don't even know when that next paycheck's going to be. And I'm 58 years old, and God damn it, I should not have to worry about this shit. I shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. This is not a thing any American should have to worry about. And like when I say learning about the economic crisis in other countries, there are places in the world, in South America specifically, the places that I'm remembering studying, where removal of the social safety net, removal of pensions and Social Security and all of these things, removal of food stamps and that, these people don't just lay down and die.
No.
Like, the impoverished people aren't just like, oh, well, okay, well, this ditch looks nice and
cozy.
This is where I'll die now. No, they turn to crime.
Yes.
And there are entire communities, Brazil especially deals with this, but a lot of places where impoverished people get together and they basically do flash mob robberies. They'll all plan to go to one restaurant. They show up, they rob everybody in just a few seconds, and then they're gone. So by the time you could call the police and get right there, it's over.
I don't have any friends, though. I couldn't do that. Do you want to go with me to a restaurant?
But like, and in Argentina, I remember very vividly studying about the senior citizens who were prostituting themselves because they had no other source of money and eating like frogs and things that they found. This is not a healthy retirement situation. This is not a comfortable way to live.
I mean, at least in America, we have OnlyFans. I mean, it's a safe way at least to make money, and
but the the horrors of living in a world where you can say, well, at least I only have to show my naked body on the internet. Like that's the better option. No. Our parents, our grandparents had better options. And then everybody else decided that it would be better for 4 people to have the same amount of wealth as half the world.
Yeah.
So it's just been really, really tough. And watching this documentary, like they talked about how one of the ways that you can increase like your retirement savings is to increase your income, because then your 5% that you're putting away or whatever is larger because you've got more income. But that's really not necessarily possible anymore. And our jobs report for last month was 1 million jobs short.
Oh.
So like there are no jobs for most of the country. And granted, there are still places that are hiring and whatnot, but it's a lot less work available than what you would think.
Sure.
And nobody has pensions anymore. Like, that's a thing of the past. The idea that a company was going to pay you for being loyal to them, why would you not job hop every 2 or 3 years if there's nothing at the other end of it? And then, like, the documentary talked about cost of living is going up and nest eggs are not producing an income. How can you make ends meet? And it was like, oh, that was before 20% inflation every year. That was before COVID.
Right.
That was before. It's eternally worse than it was 12 years ago.
Oh, certainly.
And it was not good 12 years ago.
No.
And they talked about, like, they talked to people who were digging into their retirement funds to pay for their kids' educations and to pay for divorces or, to survive a recession. And I mean, I know that, at least I'm pretty sure we had talked about that you had to go through your retirement funds when you...
Yes. When I first became homeless, I had to cash in my pension. And unfortunately, I'm not allowed in the state of New Jersey to start paying into a different pension. So living in another state now, that's something that I can do. So I'm going to be talking to a financial advisor about that. But yeah, I mean, this documentary was saying we should start worrying about our retirement finances at 18. Well, as soon as we get our first, real adult job with a W-2 coming in at the end, so that we should already start worrying about something after 40 years. Wow.
It is such an unreasonable ask
Yeah.
to expect people in their teens or early 20s to be thinking that far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And while there's this magic of compound interest, blah, 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 yes, that is true. That if you start putting money away early and you just leave it, it will continue to grow. There will be recessions and stuff and it'll dip.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, when I was in my early 20s, I had a job at an insurance company and they had set up a 401k. And I had about $4,500 in it when I left that company. And because I was in my early 20s, it did not occur to me to track them down and take that money and transfer it to another thing. So it just stayed in their 401k system until about 4 years ago when I did the work of gathering all of my 401ks and I found it. And all that compound interest had earned me, I went from $4,500 to $5,083. So over like 20 years, like and I know it's exactly what they talked about in this documentary, that all the fees that were associated with the thing that was just being eaten alive, and like, it's very frustrating to be able to live in a country where they expect the youngest people who are so not involved in life, they haven't had any experience, like you're just new and fresh and dumb and shiny and old, and you're supposed to be thinking about, well, 70-year-old me is going to need this. No,
I mean, nobody goes into their adulthood thinking, yes, I'm going to be divorced, and yes, I'm going to be homeless, and no, we're all stupid, like you said, stupid, happy, shiny, and dumb. Like, this is going to be the greatest thing in my life. And then the world comes along and says, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's so viscerally uncomfortable to watch this documentary. And they're talking about, one guy says it, one of the investors at one point says, you can't start working in your 20s and then get serious about this in your 40s. That ship has sailed. And I don't know how much truth there is to that. I know several financial experts who will tell you that even if you figure it out late in your 40s or your 50s, you can still, at that point, put in major effort to see some significant gains. You could probably save $200,000 or $300,000 in retirement from, 42 to 62, and have something. I mean, it's not going to be the $1.5 million that you would have had if you'd started 20, but something. So it is possible to not be looking at a future that is only work and death.
Right.
But it's a lot harder. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, you can't count on anything being the same from day to day. You don't know what's going to happen to the dollar, to the value of the dollar. You don't know whether or not you are going to end up alone. If you don't have children, which I don't, and if you're not married, which I'm not, you really wonder, am I going to have enough money? That's why nursing home insurance is a thing now, to start planning for, I don't have anybody to take care of me in my dotage. I need to, secure a place for when I'm not able to make my own decisions and that sort of thing. It's terrifying.
It is. And I will say that when you're young, when you're in your 20s, you kind of have this idea of, well, if I can't afford it, when I reach that point where I can't work anymore, I'll just take what money I have and have this grand old time. And when I run out, I'll die. I'll off myself. That'll be fine.
Right.
But you don't realize in your 20s that in your 40s, you're going to be like, God dang, my knees, my back hurts. The idea of like trying to, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to go do all this exciting stuff. No, you're not. No. You're going to buy comfortable shoes and you're going to be sad at home.
That's right. Yes.
That's what
and holding your cats. And yes.
And it's just, even the like more traditional ways of making money that people have done over the years, buying real estate and letting that invest, like, that's basically gone now. The private equity is buying up real estate for private homes and stuff. Last year in 2024, more than a third of the homes sold went to private equity.
Oh, I did not know that.
So they are working hard to take away the only options Americans have ever had to take care of themselves financially in any kind of real way.
Right.
And it becomes one of those things where, like, if, okay, you're going to sell your house, do you sell it for $400,000 to a family that wants to live in it, or for $700,000 to a company that wants to use it to keep people homeless and they just want to own it in their portfolio? Are you going to give up $300,000 in sales to do the right thing? Like, that's a question.
I know the answer I'd like to be able to give, and I know the answer that I would be able to give, and I'm ashamed.
Yeah. And everybody is in that situation because your typical homeowner in the United States is not a Rockefeller. They're not Scrooge McDuck for the money in their pool. Like,
Right.
it is one of those things where this is where the money was, and not the stuff that you were putting aside in your 401k didn't turn out to, increase the way you thought it was going to. And the economy's all gone to shit, and the value of everything has gone through the roof, so you can't afford anything. An extra $200,000 or $300,000 on the sale of your home could be the difference between, living in comfort and living in a dog kennel.
Yeah.
In your old age.
Yes, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So it's just so hard to watch people being forced between a rock and a hard place. And they even said right now, quote unquote, in 2013, as of the time of this filming of this documentary, there was $10 trillion set aside for retirement across the country, the vast majority of which was invested in 401ks, which means that money is invested in pushing and building corporations.
Right.
Companies that are basically on the stock exchange. That's where that money is going. And all of these corporations are pushing to not pay people a living wage, and they're pushing to cut your benefits. And so your survival depends on the survival of these companies that are just destroying the country.
Over, you're just kind of sitting back and watching the chaos happen.
Yeah, it's vile that this is what we're expected to do. And then they said only about 50% of companies offer a 401k in the first place. Yeah. So even if you not want to invest in a 401k, you may not have that option through your employer. And that was the replacement for the pension, was that the employer was going to kick in towards your 401k. So like for me, I put 5% of my check in and my employer matches 3%. So I get 8% of my salary set aside. And that's great. But if my employer didn't do that, I wouldn't have that extra 3%.
Sure.
I wouldn't have access to that. And even then, what's going to happen with that extra 3%? God only knows. So it's just a very poor way of taking care of people, of investing money, of trying to make money for yourself. And they said that like 60 million Americans had signed up for 401ks as of 2013, but that most people didn't understand it. And that 401ks are, in fact, one of the very few products that Americans buy that they don't know the price of it.
Yeah, that's true. You don't. It's almost like hedge funds. You just,
You're just expected to give money. And
right.
Well, they'll take what they need out of it and then they'll do. But just like medical care, you don't know what it's going to cost to go to the doctor unless you have insurance. Then you know your copay.
Right.
But if you're uninsured, that doctor could charge you $10,000 for basic care and you have no.
It could be one year where you don't have to go to the ER at all, and then maybe the next year you fall out of a tree and break your ankles or something. If you have a catastrophic injury, you're going to need the money to cover that.
Yeah. And you have no idea what it's going to cost.
Sure.
It could be $600. It could be $60,000. And either way, you would not know if you were being given a correct price.
Yep. So
like 401ks are similar in that you have no idea what it costs. You have no idea. It's just this is where you're supposed to put your money. So that's where you put your money. It reminds me a lot of when I was graduating high school, And it was you have to you have to go to school. Take out student loans.
Yeah.
Student loans are fine. It's good debt. You need that. And then 15 years later, all of my generation has graduated college and they're like, you stupid idiot. Why did you take out student loans?
Yeah.
Because you told us.
Right. That it was the thing to do.
I count myself so lucky every day that my parents did not ask me to take out student loans.
Yeah.
I went to affordable universities and they paid for it. So I graduated with no debt. And without that, my life would not be what it is.
Right.
And to know that I have so many friends who do not own a house because they owe $500 a month or more in student loans, that is so upsetting and predatory. And 401ks are very similar in that this is what you're supposed to do. Put your money here. This is what's good for your money. It's just
because we don't know who's at the root of those decisions. You know, who is it exactly that's telling us to do that? The people, the vendors, our employers, the money pundits?
Yeah, it's weird. And there's clearly an entire industry that has built up around the concept of 401ks, and jobs that didn't exist in the 1970s now make up huge portions of the highest earning people in the country now, hedge fund managers and that sort of thing. But I mean, in the 1970s, 42% of employees had a pension plan. And now I don't think you could find a place that still offers pension. Maybe the USPS. Maybe.
My last university did.
Oh, they offered a pension.
Oh, yes. And that's what I was able. There was no 401k. It was just pension and profit sharing. So when I was dismissed, that's how I took my pension money, all in one shot. You know.
Yeah, well, okay, so there are definitely some places that are still doing it, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
And they talk about in the documentary how this became a real issue, pensions, when people started living longer and the market got more volatile. So like in the 70s and 80s, we saw like this jump in longevity. And I'm sure that comes from better health care,
more medical knowledge, better medications. Not as many people are smoking anymore or drinking as much now that we know about addiction and alcoholism. Sure.
And sunscreen
became a thing, and knee pads and helmets when you're riding your motorcycle. Yeah.
And we stopped prescribing amphetamines and barbiturates to housewives who were unhappy.
Right.
Yeah. So we saw a marked increase in longevity in large parts of the population. And the market got weird. Where the 80s had this very go, 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 everything is going to rise forever kind of approach. And that's just not how it goes.
Oh, no, it's not. You can't sustain that kind of a rate. It's one thing. It's always going to collapse back in on itself.
And so then the pensions had been investing to set this money aside to be able to pay out to their employees. They decided it wasn't worth that anymore. And so they started shutting down pensions and pushing people to invest in 401ks. And they found a loophole. A loophole was discovered in the Internal Revenue Code that 401ks were never intended to apply to everyone. These were not a product that was supposed to be for everybody.
Oh.
And they turned around and they're like, but this is the solution. So everybody have a 401k.
It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
It's not. And I will tell you that there are some insurance products, life insurance products, where if you are extraordinarily wealthy and you've maxed out your 401ks and your IRAs and all of your other investments, and you have regular traditional life insurance, there are additional high value life insurance products that you can buy that essentially are, I'm not going to call them money laundering, but I'm not.
But you're not calling it money laundering.
Essentially, it's this guaranteed, I'm going to put this money aside and it's guaranteed to pay out to me so many X number of dollars in so many years. And it's a tremendous increase in what you would normally earn. These products are designed for the uber wealthy to have other places to invest their money, to have other places to expand their portfolio. And they're not meant for everybody. So this is kind of like if the insurance industry turned to the world and it was like, here's this high value insurance product you should be buying. It guarantees you this income. But it doesn't work if everybody has it. It topples the market and it messes with things. And you're not supposed to be making that kind of money anyway. This is kind of like a rich person tax dodge.
Well, that's like if 5,000 people win the lottery. Not oh great, I have $71. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, they push this as a solution, and with a 401k plan, all of the risk falls on you. As an individual who is investing your money in a 401k, all the risk, all the loss falls on you. But that's when they decided that mutual funds were a value, because you could invest in 500 companies all at once, and it kind of balanced out, so you didn't lose everything when a company went out. Yeah, and that's great, but that didn't change the fact that all of the risk still falls on you as an individual, and all of the benefit goes to the companies who now have your money to play with.
Right.
And so at this point, mutual funds were charging like very high fees in the 80s and 90s. And they were advertising in ways like, it doesn't take any skill to invest in the market.
Right.
No, it does. You can't just pick some random stuff and hope it's good.
Right.
And in the 90s, basically you could not lose money because the dot-com boom was going on. And we just had this massive like influx of new jobs and careers and like opportunities for money that didn't exist before.
Oh yeah, because we got rid of Reagan finally. Also, after 8 years of him being on the throne, finally we got our act together, and yeah.
And so with all of that, everybody had their money in 401ks, and everybody in the 90s thought 401ks were just as godsend because look at all this money I'm making. And then in the spring of 2000, the market collapsed. And a lot of people lost everything. They lost 100% of their investments. There were people who, what's it called? Buying on margin, where you invest some money and then you borrow a bunch of money to invest in the stock market with the intention that you're going to pay that back.
Oh, that sounds terrifying. I wouldn't want to do that.
I had family members who did that. And in 2000, they just looked at each other and they were like, we're going to go out to dinner and we're just not going to think about this because we owe 80 grand to a company that invested in our 401k and now there's nothing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how those people managed.
I don't either. No.
But yeah, that was so common because there was this concept that you couldn't lose. And clearly you can lose a lot. But like in the 90s, even teachers were seeing their 401ks rise by like $30,000 a day at some points, depending on how the market was doing. So this like, let's all invest. It's going to be so good. It feels very crypto Bitcoin today.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been kind of crazy because then the 2000 bust happened, and then 2008. All of it crashed out again, 2008, 2009, 2010, that recession. And then it happened again, and then now it's happening again. So there is no...
You can't predict it.
You can't predict it.
Well, the average person can't. I mean, I'm sure there are financial analysts who crunch the numbers and all that and can maybe guess a trend, but you can't. You can't.
You can't. And when my daughter was born, my husband and I sat down with the bank and we were like, so we want to start putting money away for her for college. And they were like, well, you want a 529 fund. And I was like, that's where we invest her college fund into the stock market. And he's like, yeah. And I said, so what happens if she's 17 and the stock market bottoms out? And he goes, you don't need to worry about that. You just need to invest in a 529. And I was like, if you cannot tell me.
Yeah.
What's up?
Question, please. Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? We will not be investing our money in 529 for her. Her grandmother and her aunt both have 529 set up for her. She will have, assuming the market is decent, she'll have that money. We have set aside separate money in a separate savings account for her.
Yeah.
So she'll have that also. It's not like we're not investing in her future. But putting it all somewhere where she may not have it when she needs it is not,
Right.
does not feel safe or comfortable.
And God forbid something happens to you or your husband, you know?
And at the time, when we were having that conversation, 529s could only be used for school-related expenses. So if you oversaved, if you put $150,000 in a 529 account, and then you went to 2 years of community college and 2 years of public school, and you had an extra 60 grand left over, you were screwed. You couldn't get that money out of there because it was for educational purposes
only.
You had to then turn around and sign it over to be for somebody else's educational expenses, a younger brother or sister or a cousin or something.
Oh, wow.
That
I had no idea.
That has since changed, is my understanding. Though I don't pay too much attention to it because we don't have the money in there. But my understanding is that that has since changed, but there were a ton of people who got to a point where they're like, I mean, I guess I could buy a laptop and that would be considered an educational expense and like what? But they hit a point where they're like, so I have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 that I can't touch because it was set aside for education.
Right.
And
so you finished your education, you know, or God forbid, not everybody is cut out for college.
Yeah,
let's be honest. And I see a lot of parents with newborns. Obviously, they think their newborn is going to be the next Einstein, but that's probably not going to happen. It's possible that baby isn't college material, and that's fine. But if they have this 529 account, they've saved $100 grand for something that this kid isn't, gonna do.
Yeah. So then,
how horrifying.
Yeah. So the investing money in the stock market is risky in every aspect of it. Like the concept that there's no risk is that that it is always risk. And even in the 90s when it was just nothing but up, it was always risk. But yeah, when the housing bubble happened, it all crashed, and then the perpetually crashing markets basically prevent people from being able to build retirement funds.
Sure.
Because if you've got, I've got my $400,000 that I'm working towards having for retirement, and the market has crashed, and now I have $8,000. So now I get to take this $8,000 and keep investing and building up until there's another crash and it all disappears again. So there is no gain. It's basically perpetual loss.
And there's no security, No,
they it looks like a lot of this money is going to pay bonuses to the people who are running this show kind of behind the scenes. In 2008, Wall Street handed out almost $2 billion in bonuses. In 2008.
Yeah.
During the crash, they destroyed everybody's everything. Nobody's house was worth shit. Nobody had any money, but we had $2 billion out of people's retirement funds to pay bonuses to people on Wall Street. Because they'd done such just a fabulous job.
This was a merit increase on it.
And there was one guy in the documentary, his last name was Hilton Smith, who he graduated school and he got a job and he was watching his 401k and he started digging in and he saw the huge fees just eating up everything and that there was no transparency. And so he decided to transition his career into tracking this, into figuring out how people handle this situation, how to avoid all of the constant loss of money.
Sure. And
he just discovered that a lot of the 401k programs are pretty terrible. They're high costs, the worthless investments that are in them. You really need a Vanguard or not specifically Vanguard, but a mutual fund. Vanguard is big on the mutual funds, the low fee mutual funds. And if you're going to invest in the 401k, that's really the way you have to do it, because otherwise 60% of your gains are going to pay the fees to the people who are setting this up for you in the first place. And I even talked to Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard. He basically set up Vanguard to minimize Wall Street's take from your 401k. This is the first rich dude where I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, what's in it for you?
I feel like I instinctively do not trust the rich.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few people, Jack Bogle, Nick Hanauer, like there's a few that speak strongly for the people. Whether or not the rest of their behavior lines up, I don't 100% know, but they're at least very vocal on taking care of the American people. But even like Jack Bogle talked about, a small fee of 2% can erode 2/3 of your gains
Mm.
in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
You'll lose 66% of your gains in the market just in fees alone.
More and more, I'm starting to think my grandmother was right. She just kept wads of 20s in a Crisco can buried under the chicken coop. Hey, she was born in 1905. So she saw the Depression, the Dust Bowl, right in her own backyard, and never fully got over that.
A lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
They watched the runs on the banks, they watched all of that happen, and they never trusted anybody else to take care of them ever again.
They just had money swirled away around the house. When my grandmother died, we found money in the, oh my God, weirdest places, and it wasn't a fortune. That was the other thing. It was like maybe $80, but to her, that was control,
Yeah. And it's one of those things, like if you have a parent who dies and you're cleaning out their stuff, if they are older,
Mm-hmm.
you need to flip through every book to watch for money stuff in the pages. You need to open every trinket. You need to be aware of places where money could be hidden or valuable things could be hidden, because you can find bonds and stocks and cash and things stuck in pages of books or in empty DVD or VHS cases.
My father hid silver certificates in the back of picture frames, like behind the photograph in the frame, and I didn't even know this was a thing until he died. And I was taking the photograph out of the frame because I wanted to put a different photograph of my father in that frame. And there were some silver certificates that he had gotten when he was in the Navy in 1952. They weren't worth anything at all. But it was like, oh, crap. I have to go through everything now and see where else he may have sequestered something possibly valuable. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you think back on how people dealt with the financial turmoil of the first half of the 1900s,
right,
it makes sense then that they came in and they were like, look, let's find some more secure investments. Let's find ways to take care of you. Let's make sure you have pensions. Let's make sure so that you didn't feel that need to hoard everything away.
Mm-hmm.
But then as soon as people calmed down and stopped feeling that need to hoard everything away, we're like, and now we're going to start taking it all back.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God.
And they talked about weird funds that show up in 401ks that you don't even know are there. I don't know. I did not know this until we saw the documentary. Lance Armstrong had a fund in the stock market, the Livestrong Fund, that it provided kickbacks to brokers who would sell it to people to drive up the value of the Livestrong Fund. I'm sorry. A bicycle and one testicle does not the stock market make.
Exactly. That's a fabulous tagline. Put that in the thumbnail. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, my knowledge of the Livestrong Foundation was just the bracelets, the little rubber bracelet that says Livestrong on it.
But apparently anybody could create a fund.
Yeah.
And if you were willing to kick back to the brokers, they would put your useless fund in somebody's 401k account.
God.
And that way they could take the money and the fund could take the money, and whoever had the money was just going to not realize that they lost it.
Yeah.
It's theft. I mean, it's stylized, hidden behind 15 layers of stuff, but it's theft is what it is.
Oh, certainly.
And they even talked in the documentary about how this information is out there, but it's difficult to get people to pay attention to something complicated and boring.
Yes.
And that's true. And also one of the big reasons why our money should not be tied up in the markets the way it is. Because if it's so complex and so boring that nobody can pay attention to it to learn anything about it, and you've got like a handful of people who have made this their career and everybody else knows nothing.
Right. And they're just like, go ahead, just do your thing. Do your thing. Yeah.
That should not be.
No. No. And the other thing is kind of terrifying. I just thought of this now. Some Americans may, how do I put this, want to leave the country very quickly, very suddenly, and with only the clothes on their back. How can we get our money if we're in a different country? Can you imagine that? Our money is now tied up in the United States. We are in Canada or England or wherever we have gone to escape what's going on in the United States right now, and we can't get to that money. That's even more terrifying.
Well, right now, the political situation as it stands is being weaponized by the corporations and the banks.
Right.
There was a huge ICE raid in Chicago, and you probably saw the videos and stills of them like putting small children in zip ties and pushing them down on the ground in the streets of Chicago.
Oh boy.
Wells Fargo wanted to foreclose on an apartment building, so they called in ICE and had them haul out every single person. And so Wells Fargo could do what they wanted to do to that building.
Wow.
So I think it behooves all of us to understand that if somebody in power, I'm not saying specifically Wells Fargo, but if somebody with enough power wants your stuff, they can leverage these systems to come take your stuff.
Yeah.
And so, like, my husband and I have been having conversations about, we don't want to sell the house. We love the house. We love where we live. We love everything about being here. But should we still sell the house? Because if we have it and they come marching in with their boots and tanks and rip us out of the house and they take the house, how do we do anything about that?
How do you even get your stuff back that's in the house, you know?
Like, if the bank decides that they want it, they push through enough people to make our lives hard long enough that we're not making payments because we're wherever ICE has taken us.
Sure.
And oops, now the house is the bank's again. So we've had that conversation about we're not there yet, but there may come a point where we have to sell it and take the money and just go because the odds are getting worse every day. Then potentially it could all just be ripped away from us for reasons for power and racism and whatnot.
Well, we're white, so that's what we're a little bit. We're not number one onto the chopping block,
right? But we're also not the last ones on the chopping block either.
Also women.
So yeah, it's one of those things where I should not have to have that thought.
No,
that is not a thing that I should have to consider. That's not a thing anybody should have to consider. I should not have to listen to my neighbors having a party in their yard and think, oh my God, they're playing Tejano. Please don't let anybody call on them. Like, our neighbors are lovely, wonderful people. The guy next door, I see him walking every day.
You know Moses' lawn all the time? Okay.
Moses' lawn, like every other day. And he's
real into that.
And he goes on like 40-mile walks. This man never stops moving. But he's so friendly and he's so kind and yeah, he's wonderful as a neighbor. And when we had hired a tree company to come and cut down a tree in our yard, they showed up 2 days before they were supposed to be here and parked in the neighbor's driveway. And I was like, no. So like I made a plate of brownies and I went over and I apologized and I was like, I'm so sorry that they're in your driveway and that
if it made me a plate of brownies, I'd forgive you pretty much anything.
Well, and then the next day his wife, who does not speak English, I could tell she had gone online or worked with one of her kids to be able to learn to say thank you for the cookies. Because she just wanted to say thank you for doing a nice thing. And they were so kind about, I'm sorry this company made this mistake. This was not on us. This was not a thing we were trying to do to you. I apologize. And they were so great about it. Like,
great.
And to know that they are potentially in danger, like, as far as I know, they are full legal immigrants, but that doesn't
mean anything.
And so knowing that, like, we're sitting here thinking about these things, how they impact our finances, what it means to live and work in a country where all of that could be ripped away because, fascism.
Yeah.
Not comfortable. And so I'm watching this documentary and listening to him talk about, well, the 401ks and how they work and how they're all set up and how it really damaged a lot of people's financial health and ability to take care of themselves. And thinking about, oh my God, I can't believe it got worse than that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just very uncomfortable.
Getting older is expensive anyway. You're going to be on a lot of different medications. If you're older, you might need physical therapy for something. You've got, so many different health problems that, it costs more to be 70 than it does to be 20. It's a weird way of phrasing that, I know, but you're not going to go, oh, I'm going to have fewer expenses on it. No, you're going to have more expenses.
Well, and when you're 20, you can put, boxed mac and cheese and prayer in your body and be like, look at me go.
Yeah, sure.
You're not 50,
plastic at that age, but yeah, you're going to have your special macrobiotic diet, and, all the other 10,000 things that are wrong with you,
So I just listening to them talk and like every time they stepped in and they were like, so this is not great. So we're going to create index funds in the S&P 500 so that you'll see a little less growth, but you won't see it bottom out the way that it does for other people. Well, then they come in and they're like, all right, we're going to charge you 9% to run that mutual fund. And then they have to come in and be like, no, so now we're making people fiduciaries who are required by law to put their clients' best interests first. And then they come out and they're like, well, yeah, but is a fiduciary going to make you as much money as somebody who's willing to lie and cheat and steal? And oh my God, stop talking.
Why? I shouldn't even have to make this decision. Why do I have to make this decision?
Yeah, and so many people don't understand that past performance does not guarantee future results, ever in anything.
Right.
The stock market included in that.
Sure.
And so you can't be like, well, it's been going up and up for years. That means nothing.
No, today's a brand new day.
Brand new day with maniacs at the wheel. And
That's right.
How are we going to handle that? But like, there is no technical definition or specific definition of a financial advisor. Anybody can call themselves a financial advisor, and your accountant is going to know very different things than if I do. It's going to know that
they're going to look for different things.
And I mean, even I'm a licensed insurance agent. I can tell you important things that you should know about insurance that can help protect your investments and all of this stuff. But that doesn't make me a financial advisor. And despite the fact that what I can tell you is financial in nature, still not a financial advisor. So there's like, how do you define these things? And what's the difference between a broker and an agent?
Right.
Yeah, so many of these people do not have any requirement to put your needs first. So many of these people have I don't know and if people knew this. I did not know this until I watched the documentary. Companies have the right to reset the rate of return on your policy. So if you sign up and they're like, we're guaranteeing you a 12% return, that lasts for 1 year. And then the next year, they can be like, we'll guarantee you 1.5% return.
Yay.
And the other thing is, your money is going to support things that you may not.
Right.
I had a conversation with my financial advisor, quote unquote, because that's who he is. And I was like, so I don't want my money going to support these companies, these organizations.
Right.
And he was like, well, if you're doing the S&P 500 and stuff, you don't get that choice. We can't say you're going to do these 480 companies, not these 500. You're either investing in this or you're not.
Oh, wow, that hurts.
And
that hurts.
So what we ended up doing was they have a system where we can invest our money and it's set aside by the company. They are not investing our money into the systems. They're investing other people's money with the promise that they have X number of dollars from us. There is kind of like balance or whatnot. And that there's a bottom that we can hit and a top that we can hit, but we can't lose beyond a certain amount and we can't make more than a certain amount.
Right.
So it offers us some conservative financial benefit there that we're not going to lose everything. And so we're like, okay, we can set that up. But I know my money is still going to support Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all the people.
Yeah.
And if I had my way, It would not do that.
No.
I would be investing in green tech and like all these companies that are supposed to be doing good things for the world,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have that option. That's not even an opportunity for me. And in fact, I don't know if you saw, but a couple years ago, lawsuits were filed to stop people from being able to choose what they wanted to invest in,
Mhm.
that you could not choose not to invest in something because you were morally opposed to it. I don't know what happened to those lawsuits, but that you could not pull money out of the market because you had moral issues with that.
But it's okay for us to have the moral issues and not choose to patronize that. That's okay. But they're said limited.
Well, I don't know what happened with that lawsuit, and
Okay.
I know that there is a lot of you're not allowed to boycott Israel. Well, you don't decide what I do with my money.
See, that's
Like,
that's what I was saying.
as long as I'm not putting on a shirt that says I'm boycotting Israel and standing by the dates or whatever,
Yeah.
I don't buy them. You have no proof of whether or not I'm boycotting anything.
Absolutely.
So I feel like this is a very similar thing.
It
They're just wanting to make you afraid
Mm-hmm.
to make those decisions.
Oh,
But oh my goodness, it is just surreal to be dealing with this and all of the people basically living in America in 2025 is I don't know, Uncle Sam in a race car jacket covered with corporations. And he comes by and he steps on your neck and he's like, "Give it to me.
yeah.
Give me your money." Like that's very much what it feels like.
No, it does, and it's
And they even talked about like the Labor Department tried to regulate the industry in 2010, and there were such strong lobbying efforts that the proposal basically got pulled.
oh,
Yeah, and then they were able to change or pass some new rules about fee disclosure, but there's no incentive for the market to change.
no.
And the only advice that the documentary was able to give in the end of all of it was to be very aware of the fees that are being charged to you in your 401k and to find ways to save more than you have to.
Mm.
That you should be putting aside more than the recommended amount. I feel like that should not be.
Well, no, no, it definitely should not be, because it's asking you to predict the future, really, as to what you're going to need, when, and why, and
Yeah, I remember being a kid and my great grandmother, who was born in Indiana in like early 1900s,
well, like
she
my grandmother.
yeah,
Yeah.
like my great grandmother, but she was born kind of in middle of nowhere America. She never was great with saving for anything and had a husband who left and all of the things and the whatnot. And I remember my 80-something-year-old grandmother working at Taco Bell.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh God, I have seen the future, and it is sad. I don't want to work at Taco Bell now. I mean, oh,
But to look at somebody who she was hunched over. She had osteoporosis, but she was not in a position where she should have been standing
oh,
to do that
yeah.
kind of work. And she essentially had no choice. And I remember her laughing and laughing and waving this piece of paper around. And I said, "What's so funny?" And she said, "I get $20 a month from food stamps.
Mhm.
And they sent me 3 separate letters to tell me that they're dropping me down to $19 a month. 3 separate letters for $1." And she thought that was very funny. And my great grandmother was kind of card.
Uh,
Like she's a lovely,
this
wonderful
is
lady.
your dad's side.
My dad's side.
Okay.
Um, she was such a wonderful woman. I loved her so much, but she was very silly and made decisions differently than most people did. She was the one who had gathered wild animals and brought them into her home as pets. Like she had a pigeon that had a broken wing and she adopted it, and she had like raccoons that came to her house.
Oh my God.
And she had like she loved animals. And
Clearly.
that's what she wanted to do with her time. But over the years of not having set aside the money, Social Security and food stamps was only doing so much. She ended up having to pick up part-time work. And I feel so awful that is the life she was living.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that my parents at that time would not have let her do that if it was not the best option.
No, of course.
And so there were reasons she wasn't living with us or my aunt or my uncle.
Yeah,
like
a little bit of a knowledge of it as a kid.
Yeah, so
there was more going on that you needed to know at the time.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of stuff that I didn't understand because I was little, but I do remember watching her live in what today, looking back on, was pretty abject poverty.
Yeah.
She had an apartment, and she had her cacophony of animals that she had found.
Oh my God.
And that was about what she had. And I feel terrible that that's what she was dealing with, but I don't know how she got there or
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like my husband and I try hard to plan financially for the future. But he has ADHD, which makes that difficult.
Yes.
And we live in the same world as everybody else. My paycheck has stayed the same since 2021. I mean, thereabouts, it's gone up about $4,000 since then. And the cost of everything has so ballooned that
sure.
that money does not go as far as it did. We're in a good place financially, but who knows if that will continue to be the case or, God knows.
All that has to happen is there for me another pandemic.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, we got our stimulus checks and everything, but we had no jobs, to go to. So that's, you can't predict things like that.
You can't. And now that they've shut down the CDC, essentially, they fired everybody that had any kind of value at the CDC. There's another pandemic coming.
Oh, easily.
We have learned through the making of this podcast. Every episode, we do a little bit of what was happening in that year. And more often than not, there was a disease that could have been a pandemic that was stopped by the governmental systems that were put in place to contain it. We don't have any systems anymore.
Oh, no.
And now everybody's afraid of vaccinations.
God.
So it's coming.
Yeah. And it's going to be something stupid like measles again. Or, whooping cough is already back in full force, pertussis.
Oh, yeah.
No vaccines for that.
Well, and pertussis vaccines are not 100%. Well, no vaccine is 100%, but pertussis vaccines have a lot lower efficacy rate than other vaccines. Like the polio vaccine is much more efficient than the pertussis vaccine. So even if you're fully vaccinated for pertussis, if you're exposed, there's still a decent likelihood that you will end up sick. The reason pertussis vaccines work is because when everybody gets them, they're a lot less likely to spread that through the community.
Sure.
And so now that everybody's like, no, my kid will be fine, we're all going to be at the mercy of pertussis.
Sure.
And measles and all the rest of it. And I remember in 2023, I went into my doctor and I was like, I cannot find any of my childhood vaccination records. My pediatrician has already done away with them. The school system has done away with them. My parents don't have them. Can I just get revaccinated for everything? And she was like, yeah, we can do that.
Really?
So at like 40,
Yeah.
I got my polio vaccine and I got revaxxed for all the hepatitis and all the stuff. I got my Tdap booster and I got all that stuff because I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And we lived not far from a community where polio had shown back up again because it's a small religious community that didn't vaccinate.
Right.
And they had somebody who basically was paralyzed with polio. Sure. And I was like, that's like 200 miles from here. That's too close.
Yeah.
So I just went, I was like, I hate needles more than anything. I'm bringing my husband. He's going to hold my hand. I'm going to talk to him while you just all the shots.
Give me all the shots. Were you able to get them all at once? Don't you need to go 3 or 6 months in between?
Well, because we're working on the assumption that because I was in the public school system, I had to have had these vaccines.
Yes.
But just for, protective purposes, I had, not all at once. I had COVID and flu and another one. And then at a separate time, I had like 3 more. I had Tdap and polio and hepatitis or something like that. But I had basically all of the big ones that you get from when you're a kid. I just had them all done again. And I didn't even know that they could do that.
I did not know either.
But yeah, so I'm just very appreciative of that. And very hopeful that maybe that is helping me in some way. Maybe that will protect me as the world falls to
Right.
chaos.
You will be the only one left.
Because apparently I have no guarantees of my 401k being there. I have no guarantees of my
We're not going to get polio, and that is the important thing that we need to take from this.
Indeed. But thanks for listening to Real Stories, Real Problems with your hosts, Rachael and Roxanne. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into 401ks and the retirement gamble. Join us again next week for a glimpse into another financial problem and a documentary all about it. If you enjoyed our show today, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on your podcast app. Thanks for listening. See you again next week.
Bye for now.